Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, and you are on the record. A unique podcast, at least I hope so, that talks about the past 50 years, COVID, and the next 50 years of the sports business, where it's been, what the challenges were, and where it's going. And it started really 50 years ago. This is the first Miami Dolphin ticket ever for the old Miami Dolphins over 50 years ago. Less than $5 for this ticket. Average NFL revenues, less than $4 million at the time. If you're a baseball player, you're going to make about $26,000 at that time. And then George Steinbrenner sets the stage by buying the New York Yankees 50 years ago, $10 million. About 50 years after that, the industry was worth $1.3 trillion a year. Highly visible, highly controversial, and an industry worth watching. But yet, on March 11, 2020, the whole thing changes. Rudy Gobert tests positive for COVID, playing for the Jazz in Oklahoma City. Tire industry shuts down, losing $12 billion a week. How are you ever going to come back? Resilience, it did come back. And the roaring 20s in the 1900s, Yankee Stadium and otherwise, Spanish flu recovery gave way to a bigger and wider ranging scale of recovery from COVID 100 years later. And look, the Yankees, obviously, $9-10 billion. Imagine Steinbrenner for $9-10 million. Steve Ross turns down an offer to buy the Miami Dolphins for $10 billion. Television revenues of the NFL, cumulative contracts, nearly $200 billion. NIL, nobody even knew what that was, now over $3 billion a year. And when you think about all of the numbers, it's a success after COVID because of three factors. One, survival of the fittest, uniqueness. Second of all, creativity in the context of taking the next step and standing out. And third, collaboration, cooperation, best practices. You put all of them together and you look at the next 50 years. Big challenges, Web 3.0, globalization. We're scared of AI. What are we going to do with it? NIL. Get the toothpaste back in the tube, for the metaphor. What about conference realignment? What about the franchise free agency, team free agency, player free agency, stadium development? All of that stuff, we need some defining and guiding moments. Well, luckily, this podcast can give you some of that perspective with some unparalleled cooperation with the Falk Institute of Sports at Syracuse University and the UNLV Global Sports Innovation Institute as well, along with the partnership that they had sponsoring the SEICon Development Conference with USA Today. Came back from the conference, had some interesting perspective. The content is great, but the podcast will hopefully take some of the issues that have been raised by these partners and take them to the next level with some interviews that I hope you're going to like. And the bottom line is, hopefully you'll have a good time and you may even learn something in the process. So sit, don't go anywhere. Every week we will theme it around major events and a mega interview. And hopefully you'll be entertained and you might even learn something. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and you're on the record.
Horrow Sports Ventures is proud to partner with Circle, the omni-channel guest experience agency redefining engagement. Circle specializes in creating seamless, integrated experiences across digital, social, and physical platforms, ensuring unforgettable moments for every audience. Their flagship event, SEICon, has set new standards in the industry, bringing together leaders and innovators for a conference like no other. And the exciting news doesn't stop there. Circle and Horrow Sports Ventures are teaming up for future events that will continue to push boundaries and deliver exponential experiences. Stay tuned for more details on these groundbreaking collaborations. To learn more about Circle and their innovative work, visit wearecircle.com. Thank you, Circle, for your partnership and support. Now, let's get back to the show.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and you're on the record. Hopefully a groundbreaking podcast that will talk about what the week has been like, the top 5 issues. We have a very interesting interview in the middle of this. A person who has been at the Open, which we're celebrating this week, British Open in Troon, 46 times, clearly far and away the most of any other participant. But he's a friend and he has a tremendous perspective, Gary Player. And then we'll look ahead to the top 5 issues of next week coming right up. So let's get started. Issue number 1 from the past week. Well, SEICon, the Sports Entertainment Industry Innovation Conference, which happened in Las Vegas, was a complete success. 600 registrants, 45 panels, 200 expert witnesses, guest opinion leaders. I was happy enough and lucky enough and honored enough to host it and MC it. The most important issue was the brain trust from David Falk and the Syracuse University Falk Institute. Jay Vickers, the Las Vegas Sports Innovation Institute, UNLV, Syracuse, coming together. Sean Garrity pulled it off as the guy that was the implementation person behind, the idea man behind this whole conference. And the bottom line was this becomes an issue that a conference that'll happen certainly every year and certainly a lot of different locations. New York, Washington, London, Abu Dhabi, and on and on. And the point is, this was a place for people to meet. It's also a place for deal making to happen. Seminal panels at the beginning of the sessions and keynote sessions over a 2-day period with some major hospitality events that only Vegas can do. So the most important issue, I think, is that we have an understanding and a call to action as this SEICon conference happened, continued, and set the standard that, frankly, will be hard to beat. We'll see this every single year and even more. So that's number 1. Number 2, the NBA Summer League was there in Vegas back to back, and we had a lot of NBA news relative to salaries and also relative to salary caps. Jalen Brunson, he agreed to a 4-year, $156 million extension, says Jalen Brunson's agent. The new deal has a 4th-year option that would theoretically let Brunson make some of the money back with enormous new extensions down the road. But the bottom line was, when you consider what he could have signed for, he gave the Knicks a $100 million discount, and the agent Sam Rose is the son of a team president, Leon Rose, Brunson's father, Rick, an assistant under Tom Thibodeau on his staff. But the most important issue, this is an example of an athlete who says, I understand that the Knicks would like to have some flexibility to put a better team together. Now, it's not as if he's leaving this money on the table forever. Remember, he'll get the extension at the end of the contract, and you see a lot of the players working with the teams to do that. Just note Ohtani and the Dodgers. That's number 2, happening in conjunction with number 1 in Vegas. How about number 3? Inaugural Olympic Esports taking place in Saudi Arabia. 2025 Esports Games, an experiment in Saudi Arabia. The partnership is set to run for 12 years, be held on the eve of the 2024 Paris Olympics on July 25. Then the inaugural Esports Games themselves in Saudi Arabia. And Thomas Bach says, basically, the IOC president, that this ushers in a whole new world of esports as it relates to the Olympics, tying it in. It used to be, as you can see with all of the esports programs all over the country, there are over 500 colleges, by the way, that are doing it. It used to be that we weren't sure whether the Olympic Committee and IOC would adopt it. We now understand that they were waiting for not just consensus around the world. They had that. What game are you going to use? Let's make sure it doesn't promote violence. All of those are detailed issues that are going to be worked out. The most important thing is esports clearly here to stay, and here to stay at the highest levels. That's number 4. Number 3. Number 4, the highest paid tennis players 2024, Carlos Alcaraz, why wouldn't he, leads with $45 million. The 2 records that Djokovic has are very important as well. 24 Grand Slams, 428 weeks, ranked number 1. But the $6 million more that Alcaraz is earned more than Djokovic this year is entirely new. The $2.6 million payday that Alcaraz had at Wimbledon pushed him to ninth on the all-time career prize money list with $31.5 million. He earned $15 million during last year, including $4.4 million from the ATP bonus pool. And again, here, the example is not that Alcaraz is making money on a regular comparative basis. The point is that we look like we are ready for some torch passing. Djokovic, incredibly gracious at Wimbledon. And most important, they seem to be getting along. And it seems to be this 21-year-old is heralding the next generation on the men's side. The women's side, we're ready for the Coco Gauff and American women to take a permanent position, not just kind of one and done. We'll have to see what happens at the U.S. Open. That's number 4. And then finally, number 5, in the what happened, Man U, an interesting concept with them. They're facing financial struggles after, as you might expect, their worst Premier League season ever. It posted an operating loss of $85 million in the 3 months ending March 31, soaring exponentially beyond the comparable $6 million loss for the same period a year ago. The loss similarly rose to $91.7 million from last year in the fiscal third quarter. Revenues lagged by 20%, and the 31 standing points off the league was the lowest Man U finish in the Premier League since it was formed 32 years ago. Point is, financial management important in any context. You can't take your legacy for granted, and Man U certainly is feeling it. So that's the 5 that we watched in the last couple of weeks. And the most important issue for this week is probably the impact of the British Open in Troon. Some say it's nearly $100 million. I ain't playing that postage stamp 8th hole ever. It's 128 yards, but is yielding more double bogeys than ever before. But the usual history of the British Open links courses is profound when you go to a course like Troon on the western side of Scotland, just like St. Andrews on the eastern side of Scotland. The bottom line is history, tradition like none other. Speaking of that, the interview we have is with our good friend Gary Player. Guy's 88 years old, ladies and gentlemen. He has 23 grandchildren. He has 6 children. He was married to his wife for 63 years and with her clearly untimely passing. 167 tournament wins over 5 decades. More decades, more wins, more travel than anybody alive. He captained the South Africa Olympic golf team in 2016. But the point is, he has tremendous stake in all kinds of events: philanthropy, golf course design, humanitarian issues. And as you'll hear, he is an expert on basically everything. And I mean that in the most profound sense of the word. His career earnings are $15 million, by the way, but that has nothing to do with the legacy that Gary Player's left on the golf world. Here's Gary Player now. Do you have an inkling of greatness or an inkling that there was something special that was going to go on in your life?
That's always very difficult to go back and come to a conclusion. But having had a very, very tough life as a young man, my mother died when I was 9. My father worked in a gold mine, 8,000 feet down for 30 years. My brother went to war at 18, just before he turned 18, to fight with the Americans in the last World War and its allies. And my sister was at boarding school. But Rick, you know, South Africa has the best schools in the world. You go to school with a tie on and a jacket. You stand up when the teacher comes in the classroom. And now I'm at the school and I'm having to get up every morning at 5:30 and travel an hour and a half to school in a tram, then walk across town. You wouldn't do that today at the age of 9, and then get on a bus and come home and there's a dark house. nobody there. You have to cook your own food and make your own bed, which of course is good. And I lay in bed every night crying, wishing I was dead. And that was the greatest gift bestowed upon me in my entire life. And at that stage, I can vividly remember saying, when I become a champion, I didn't know at what, I'm going to help people who are struggling because I have a taste of what it's like and I don't want them to have that. And so I suppose it was something that was ingrained in me. I felt determined to do something. And certain people are born with certain gifts, irrespective of what it might be in the art, might be sports, it might be a great husband or a great wife, whatever it may be. And so I started to play golf. My father, if you worked on the gold mine, you could play on a golf course, and he asked me to come and play golf. And I said, not for me. It's a sissy's game. I was playing rugby and cricket and track and swimming at that time. And I reluctantly went along, and I loved it so much. And thank God, Rick. I mean, golf is the most unbelievable sport. Well, what sport do all sportsmen go to when they finish their particular sport? They all go to golf. And it's a game you can play forever. Every other sport is playing away. If you play the NFL for 4 years, you've done well. But how do you walk away with all these operations and concussions and things like that? Boxing, all other sports. Golf, here I'm nearly 90, beating my age, beating par. Of course, there's a reason for that because I kept in shape, worked out hard, watched what I eat, laugh a lot. I think it's essential, Rick, to laugh a lot because the difference between laughing and being miserable is enormous. And laughing is a youthful cell, I think. And I think there are a lot of different things that I do. I work at it for longevity because longevity, living a long time is not luck. Luck is the residue of design. And this is something that the conclusion I come to, that I realized that you had to work for something. You weren't going to be given things for nothing. You had to work. And as I started to work, I could feel a determination in my body that I was telling myself I'm going to be a world champion. Now, whether I was kidding or not, but you've got to actually believe in yourself to do something. Lots of young boys come and ask me how they can become a champion. I don't have the answer, but I do know one thing. You've got to believe in yourself, and it's what made America the greatest country on the planet ever was hard work. Hard work. This is why you become so great. So, there's a lot to answer a question like that directly is not easy.
What special trait does it take to be a world-class philanthropic fundraiser? And the second part, which is related, what's your perception of athletes as role models generally?
Well, first of all, I think the essential ingredient in life is to have love in your heart. Love is a stronger weapon. It's God's weapon. It beats an atomic bomb. It beats everything. And if it really cures everything. I was around Nelson Mandela for 3 years, and he went to jail for 20 years for doing the right thing. And he came out, he had no bitterness. He was full of love, and you could see he oozed with love. And all the great people I met in my life are people that had love in their hearts and feeling for other people. I think that's so essential. And as far as other athletes are concerned, I think athletes have done a marvelous job. Obviously, they're good and bad in every walk of life. But if you look at golfers, for example, my sport, every one of them, Nicholas has a hospital, Palmer had a hospital, this guy has that, this guy has that. We as a small company, Rick, we're a very small company, have raised over $100 million and changed the lives of millions of people's lives, which has been such, they talk about, it's a very interesting thing, Rick, they talk about legacies. I don't believe in legacies. I believe you do something while you're here to the best of your ability. You try and contribute to society. When you're dead, you get the hang out of here and you go to another place and you try and you restart up there. And I think golfers have done a great job. They've built all these different facilities, and what a thrill it is to see people, particularly with the places I've been. I've traveled more miles than any human being ever now. And when I go into places like China and see how they live there, you go into India, well, they're a highly educated society and a wonderful country. You see how they live there, the poor people in Africa. My goodness me, Don't let any American ever tell me how bad things are here. They start telling me that. I say, I don't even want to listen. You just don't know how lucky you are. And America fought for freedom to give us this great country.
Well, let's quantify your perspective. The world's most traveled athlete, you referred to it before. I have a number of 26 million kilometers, probably more. Uh, how do you maintain the difficult balance with mental and physical health on the road all the time? Surely you've woken up on some mornings and say, where the hell am I?
Funny enough, I was in South Africa 7 months ago, and I went to the States, and I went back to South Africa, and I came over here, and I went back to South Africa. Now that sounds very easy, but that's a long way and a big time.
No.
Then I went to Australia for 10 days, and then I flew to LA. Then I flew up to Florida here. Then I went to the Bahamas. I came back for 2 days. I went to Houston and just got back yesterday. So I'm continuously traveling. Now, first of all, I think that people feel too sorry for themselves, where they keep complaining about how bad the pressure, under stress, adversity. I think the greatest gift I know the greatest gift bestowed upon me was struggling as a young man, because it makes you appreciate things, and it gives you strength. And nobody, Rick, this is the thing. I have never met anybody in my life. I'm dying to meet somebody that doesn't have stress or adversity. This is something we got to realize, and we got to make the best of it.
For physical longevity, this is why people are tuning in. They want to get the fountain of youth. Maybe there's a Gary Player pill. But I will say this, there is no Gary Player pill. There's hard work, there's diet. You could talk about it. Jack wins a major at 46. Phil wins a major at 50. You're doing all of these sit-ups and push-ups, and you're pushing 90. What's the key to your physical longevity? And what advice would you give to golfers to see if they can reach that pot of gold?
Rick, what the advice I'm going to give now, people are not going to adhere to it, because you live in a land of milk and honey. And now the single most important thing to live a long time and live well is to undereat. And unfortunately, America, this great country, all overeat. Over 80% of Americans are obese. And also, Rick, to exercise. You don't have to exercise profusely like I do. Just walking is a great exercise. The other thing is laugh a lot. Laugh, make yourself happy. You have a choice of being happy or sad. Damn it. So many people choose, sad. And so I think the young people today have got to read more. They don't read enough. Cursive is a past almost. You've got to read, you've got to write. It's very, very important to be able to read. Most athletes are renowned as very poor speakers. They're inundated with making money, and they forget to realize the value of speaking well. An athlete, a businessman like yourself, look how well you speak, because you studied it. You've got to study speaking well, because that's communication, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, when we did our show in Palm Beach a few weeks ago, and I listened very carefully to what you say, because you are my hero in every material way. And one of the things that you said is eat light and eat portions that are small.
Right.
Well, by the way, I wanted to tell you that you made such an impression on me that lasted for 2 or 3 days. And now the other thing was, don't lie. So I will tell you, I'm eating like a horse again. So forget that, which then segues into the horse stuff. You have now a good segue, right? You own 2,000 horses at your place in South Africa. What's it like to be a diverse businessman with a lot of your holdings across the globe? South Africans feel like you're a South African. South Floridians want you. North Carolinians, South Carolinians, wherever your office is, want you. How does it feel to be a man of the world? Are you a man of everywhere, or are you a man of nowhere?
Rick, I believe this is a planet. It's one planet with all people in. And man, I love people. I remember when I used to play the tour, they had pro-ams, and I used to go to the PJ the head of the PGA said, listen, I want to play in both pro-ams. What? You want to play in both? Everybody only wants to play one. I said, no, I want to meet people. When I'm in the airport, I see an old lady sweeping the airport. I walk up and I give her $100 and I say, gee, what a job you're doing here. My goodness, thank you for keeping this airport clean. I love people. I really and truly love people because, and this is why at my age now, I have zero, as far as I know, any dementia. Because I'm meeting, I would say, an average of around about 30 people a day, and they 30 different topics, Rick, all different topics. So your mind, Rick, is exercising, and your brain has to exercise as well as your body. And it is, but Rick, you got to understand, it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than to get the average day man to really be concerned about his health.
So you made $15 million in career earnings. John Rahm eclipsed that already for this year. No adversity. You're thinking, man, if I could be playing today, look at that. So talk about the economics of golf.
Well, I made 15 million and I've spent 17.
Yeah, there you go. Well, even worse.
And I want to tell you, the last check I write, it's going to bounce because they'll never be able to find me. But no, I mean, look, I'm very much in favor of athletes doing well and making money. It never perturbs me whatsoever because Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and I worked hard. We promoted golf all around the world. We worked for charities and we wanted to promote the golf because we love the game. And so it's great to see. But as long as the young guys making these really outrageous amounts of money, they've got to remember that they have a duty to fulfill. And as long as they'll help charities and help people that need their help, there's nothing worse than when you see somebody who's struggling and working hard and not doing well. But there's nothing better than helping him, giving him a helping hand to see him smile and be thankful for it. Because I don't know about you, and I think most people in this world have always had a helping hand somewhere along the way. Some haven't. And if you haven't, you can't feel sorry for yourself. That's the big thing. Children have got to be taught at school. Philosophy, not just, go to school and sit down there and be like a parrot. You've got to cover a lot of subjects. You've got to have philosophy is awfully important. How to smile when you meet people. A smile is worth $1 million. I teach all these young guys that come to me and say, I want to be a champion. What have I got to do? And I said, I can't tell you what you've got to do to be a champion. That's a gift. It's called it. And I'll tell you something interesting in the history of golf. There have only been 15 players, 15 in the history of golf, that have won 6 majors or more. These players all had it. Can you define it? No, it's indefinable. It is a gift. I played with many guys when I was practicing, and they beat the hang out of me. When the bell went, I beat them. There's something about life that you've got to strive for. You've got to keep striving, to improve yourself, not necessarily to be a champion, because there are different forms and different levels of champions. Some people say, look, I don't want to travel. I just want to go home, be with my family. And after all, your family, isn't that a great thing? I mean, we must have a family of at least, with everybody together, at least 40 people, nieces and nephews and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. In fact, when I sit down there and we're at a table, I take them usually for a holiday once every 2 years somewhere in the world, and I sit at the table and I say grace, and I look up and I see all these people at the table. I say, whoo, who's paying for all that? I got to win the tournament to break even, man.
Yeah, but you've won a lot of tournaments, and you've done more, as we know, than your share. Tell me about golf course design. You've done hundreds of them all over the world. What's the most difficult challenge today? Water, environmental sustainability, which ties into water, or these behemoths hitting the drives 400 yards?
Well, first of all, I love doing designing golf courses. We've designed about 140 around the world, and a lot of them have been named number one in their respective countries. What I like about it, because I'm a rancher, so I have such respect. And my brother, when he came back from war, became the world's leading conservationist, and he brainwashed me with utter sense. Water. The world will be short of 25% of water by the year 2025. I know there's desalination. I know there's water from humidity, etc. But we've got to let the youth know. Don't get in a shower and stand there for 5 minutes. You cannot have sprinklers going in the city on the lawns when it's raining. Water is a commodity that's so important in the world. Even in America today, there are many places carrying buckets of water. They're running out of water. A place like Arizona, they got a big problem there with this massive population and not sufficient water. So we've got to watch it very, very carefully. So one of the things when I'm designing a golf course, the first thing I'll talk to the owner about, can we use sewage water that's been refined? I don't think you should be able to use fresh water on a golf course myself.
167 pro golf wins worldwide, tournaments, probably more, career Grand Slam, 9 majors on and on, 9 senior majors. What's your favorite golf moment? Do you have one?
I'd have to say, having wanted to travel and get great education and experience different cultures and religions, I wanted to win the national titles of the different countries in the world. And I won more national titles than Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods put together. That was for me a great challenge because I'd get off a plane and have to go there and travel and play there. I'm not interested in legacies because legacies do not exist. I'm interested in contributing to society whilst I'm here right now.
Last question, very important segue from that. Where's Gary Player 10 years from now?
Well, my wife died 2 years ago, and I was with her for 72 years. What a woman I had. Honest to goodness, what a woman I had. So I sent her an SMS yesterday. I said, listen, I don't know how long it'll be before I'm there, but if you find another man in the meantime, I'll get up there and I'll kill him as sure as eggs. So I don't know, 10 years' time, I'll be nearly 100. I'd like to reach 100. I really would like to, as long as I've got my wits about me. I don't want to have any dementia and wonder where I am and what I'm saying. I think that's a very, very cruel disease, unfortunately. So who knows? But I live every day like it's the last day. I love people. I love to laugh. I love life. And my goodness me, you just got to realize when you see the things that these eyes have seen around the world, that's when you realize when I'm in the United States and alive and when I'm living, how thankful. And I tell you what, Rick, I never go to bed one night in my life, not one, without getting on my hands and knees and saying thank you. And irrespective whether you believe or not, I'm not telling everybody you've got to believe. I do believe you've got to have a faith in life, but you're never so tall as when you're on your knees.
And on that note, I will tell you that the one thing I am as sure about as anything else in life, that Gary Player will be here celebrating his 100th birthday, and I'm going to ask him the same question, and he's going to give me the same answer. Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor to be with Gary Player. Rick Horrow, sports professor, speak with you soon. To know Gary Player is to love him and respect him. I've had a chance to play golf with him a couple of times. It's an honor, obviously. The guy's 88. When you ask him in an interview in a kidding way, how many sit-ups does he do? He tells you how many, and then he gets down on the floor and does them, whether you want to see it or not. I just want to be around at 88. It's a testament to a whole lot of stuff. All right, let's look at the 5 items that we need to watch in the next week coming up. Well, number 1, clearly, is Olympic preparation. The numbers are off the charts, especially when you consider that the Dolphins are top headline guys. Remember, we interviewed Steve Ross before, but all of the NFL camps are opening up, and everybody's excited down here. But more important than that, we have a major event that NBC is driving with its television revenues in Paris. $8.2 billion to construct, and the budget, including the participants for 40,000 accommodations and all of that, but plus the 45,000 personnel deployed to maximize security. The economic impact will be triple that of a lot of other locations, primarily because the costs are relatively low, kind of like the London Games were, not like the Greece Games were, not like the Australian Games, certainly not like the Sochi Games were. So the whole idea of how you put together a model for the Olympics is, again, tested now with the Paris Games, and again tested again in Los Angeles 4 years later. So that's number one. Number two, talking about sponsorship deals that are going to be cut. The average North American sports team sponsorship today is worth about $935,000, according to studies that have been done across all of the franchises in Canada as well as North America. Deal amounts valued at about $1.11 million on average in the U.S., especially in L.A. The Golden Knights, the Yankees, the Raptors have the highest number of deals across the 7 markets analyzed. London saw a 35% increase in deals where brands partnered with both men's and women's teams under the same umbrella. So we're getting messages about that. And then clearly, if we talk about this next year, what's going to be the driving factor that increases it even higher? Women's sports, clearly. So that's number two. Number three, look at the NFL and look at their equity issues. They come out with the limitations on equity, private equity team ownership to 10%. The vote was not held on the matter at the spring league meetings held in May, but the answer was, this is what we're looking at, and Roger Goodell talks about it at the Sun Valley conference that he attends annually. So we're going to hold at that number. The tension always is you don't want one entity that's a private equity fund having too much control. On the other hand, you want to give as much opportunity to as many different funds, including sovereign wealth funds, to bid into this process, because that'll allow the franchise values to continue to go up, and people will be able to put together their equity stacks to come up with an incredibly high number for the future franchises that have been sold after the Commanders were and after the Broncos were. So we'll see where that goes. That's number three. Number four, Legends, the full-service company, NFSU, in a major 10-year multimedia partnership. Florida State Global Partners reached the deals and the similar tie-ups, University of Miami, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. The president of Legends College says this is a forward-thinking structure that talks about the importance of aligning revenue streams to position for success in the new college landscape. What it is the private equity company provides investment. They'll recoup their investment with a revenue share deal, but the colleges will have revenue as an equity deal on the private side with people that they never thought they would have it with before, and the financial flexibility to do it. So this is one, but you got to look at it as a long-term deal that will include a whole host of other things as we move forward. So that's number four. And then finally, number five, Notre Dame joins NBC Sports Tech's accelerator to digitize college football. The university gets access to sports technology to advance on and off-field targets, and there's a partnership with NBC's other ventures, WWE, NASCAR, Premier League, PGA Tour, U.S. Ski and Snowboard. This was started by Mark Lazarus and others at NBC in order to incubate, in order to innovate, and in order to get to the next level. And of course, they've been doing it for longer, and some would say better, certainly more immersive than others. Notre Dame was a no-brainer with them, given their TV deal. And what it does is produces student opportunities, it produces jobs, but it produces some new companies that'll have access to capital that they never would have before. So that's number five, the middle of the British Open. As we move closer to the Olympics, I'll be there to give you some coverage. The Open is big. Gary Player's interview is huge. And hopefully you'll get into the rhythm of the On the Record podcast and be able to listen to our industry greats. We will time them around major events. And also listening to the 5 that happened and the 5 that will happen, similar to 50 years of the sports business, COVID, then 50 years after. Hope you learned something, but more important, hope you have fun doing this. I'd like to thank all the people that helped put this podcast together. And most important, I'd like to thank Gary Player for contributing some unusual and enlightened perspective Sports Professor Rick Horrow, see you soon.